My name is Salman Hameed, and I'm Assistant Professor of Integrated Science and Humanities at Hampshire College.
I'm Kevin Anderson. I teach courses in film and anthropology at the University of Massachusetts, and this is Film Autopsy. Hello, and welcome to a film autopsy of Footnote, a new film from Israel, which was that country's nomination for Best Foreign Language Film for the Oscars. It is being promoted as a new Israeli comedy, and I think both Salman and I can understand you might say that in order to get people to come and see it, but the film is far more serious than its comedic elements, which certainly are there. Much more serious and much more in-depth, I think, than that would lead you to believe. It does have at its center two professors. Professor Skolnick. One is the senior Professor Skolnick, and the other is the younger scholar, probably somewhat in his 40s. And they're both scholars of Talmudic studies in Jerusalem. And I don't know if you'd characterize it as a rivalry, but there is a difference of interpretation of just what Talmudic studies are between the two. And it makes for a very interesting film. And there's, of course, this little dramatic nugget at the center, which is the awarding of a prize to one of the Skolnicks, and they got which Skolnick they're going to award it to mixed up.
Professor Skolnick, מזל טוב.
אני רוצה להבין, התקשרתם לאבא שלי בטעות? בחיים שלי שמעתי סיפור כל כך אידיוטי.
But the film, I think, is far deeper than that. And overall, pretty enjoyable film, but quite interesting, thought-provoking.
Well, first of all, I mean, hey, how can you go wrong with a comedy about Talmudic studies scholars? Like, so no, I mean, I think it does have funny moments. In some places, it almost turns into slapstick. And in fact, there was a really funny scene where a bunch of people have to come together crammed into a very tiny office, and they're having a very serious discussion, except that every time somebody has to move out, everybody has to get up and
move the table.
And so there is this element to it, but I think underneath it lies some serious elements, and one of those things is about authenticity. And so the father sort of almost says, like, that, well, I mean, like, he worked with the pottery. He worked with the hands of the pottery, whereas his son kind of likes, or his generation kind of like works like with pots, and they don't care if the pieces fit together or not. They're just interested in the shape, and not the actual material in there from archaeological digs.
Right. So the material of history, the material of Judaic history, really, and he talks about the potsherds, I think, almost as a metaphor, because the elderly Professor Skolnick actually goes in and looks at these old, scriptures and compares them and contrasts them and finds different, deletions and differences between them. And the son is more about kind of making something out of what's already been said.
And his son has a much, at least at this point, much more illustrious career. He's sort of like well known. In fact, the movie starts with the son getting an award. And I thought, actually, I really liked the opening scene, because we only see the father getting ready and then going to the speech. And one thing that was very interesting is, and so they announce Skolnick, and we know that he's Skolnick also, but we see somebody else get up and go.
But the camera stays on the elderly Skolnick.
The entire speech. The camera stays on the father, who's just listening to the speech and his reaction.
His
tiny,
son's
like, facial expressions, and in fact, his breathing becomes more and more apparent of what he is thinking about. So I think that aspect, and that stayed throughout the film, about how he makes sense of the world. There is a lot of things about hearing, because he tries to isolate himself. The father tries to isolate himself.
Yeah, he wears these earphones, like noise cancellation earphones, when he's in his study.
And you kind of like the whole world shuts out from him. But on the flip side, his son is married, but there are other, like, family issues.
Well, there's some issues between he and his younger son, who's probably about 17.
There is a tension about sort of like how he is raising his son, and whether his son has a direction or not. So I think those aspects are very well done. I thought the music can become overbearing sometimes, because sometimes
it was overbearing.
It was like, I mean, sometimes there are serious items, but then it would be, the music would not work, because it would have sort of like comedic elements. Lighter elements to it.
I thought about this afterwards, and this is one of the things that I think is a shortcoming of the film. It's overly stylized in some points with the music cues and some of the camera angles, and there's
and the way that they told the story of everybody
on the screen and telling the story, and it's almost like it's almost apologetically overly stylized, as if it's saying, okay, we're watching this film about Talmudic studies, but it's fun, right? And it's like, no, it is fun. It is interesting. You don't have to try to make up for that by putting in this kind of MTV style.
But we are both in academia. Yeah, we love these kind of fights about like when the stakes are really low. No, I mean, I
don't think it was necessary.
People who are not in academia, they may not enjoy it as much as we did. But, oh, academic spat, we love it. No, but I think overall
it's not just for academics.
But overall, the movie works well. I mean, I think I agree with you. It does have some shortcomings, but overall, but those are more about. Again, about the stylized aspects, but I think the story holds together, and the way the movie ends, I think too. I think I really liked. I think the second half of the film.
It gets more serious as it goes on, and I kind of like that.
The stakes become higher, and then it's no longer the slapstick is more jarring towards that time rather than sort of like part of the film.
Well, the film is a great starting off point for, I think, other conversations about Israeli society, politics, and history, and authenticity.
And I think it does have political elements to it. And
if you want to see the film and sit around and kvetch with your friends about its meaning and why it's important to see it now, go for it, because that's what we do.
And it has complexity to all of the characters, actually, kind of. So we like it. We like it overall.
Yeah, Footnote.
I think Footnote will be good.
And a rendezvous.